Happy Sunday, the 25th of July. I'll give you a bit of tutorial today about life of purity, living purely of the ascetics of life. You know, we all take life, when some of us take life for granted, not on purpose. It's just because their body's tuition to, your lifestyle, your body's tuition to that lifestyle. It could be overindulging food, eating takeaway or alcoholism or narcotics. You come to a roundabout, spaghetti junction of all different avenues you can turn down. You come to a roundabout at spaghetti junction. You can go all down different avenues. But your life is used to going down the road of takeaways. We can go first left to takeaways, or the second left at the roundabout to alcoholism, or the third left at the roundabout to narcotics, or the fourth exit of overindulging takeaways, overindulging alcoholism, and overindulging in narcotics. Or you can take the fifth left to live life purely of the aesthetic to life. You gotta, it's hard. I'm not trying to dictate someone's lifestyle or bring people down, because some people can't help it. I'm not saying I'm perfect, because nobody is perfect. Everyone's got rough edges. Everyone's got a life of purgatory. We're all trying to look to better self, but I'm here to say, make that change. You can overcompensate in anything you do in life. And sometimes you need to make that change to live a better, healthier, prosperous life when only prosperity matters. I'm not here, to put people down, to make people feel bad about themselves. I'm here to let people know, acknowledge what is not, what's affecting them. You know what's affecting you. You know yourself what's affecting you. I've been there. I've been that person. I've been that person overindulging takeaways. I've been that person overindulging alcoholism. I've been that person overindulging in narcotics. But I was born in the Church of England. I knew my right from wrong. The day you was born is when you know you're right from wrong, unless you're in a volatile upbringing. But that's by the by. Sociological change can better your aspirations. If you're not happy with your circle, your inner circle of life goals, life adventures, you got to make that sociological change to better your well-being, better your wealth, because your well-being is your wealth. If you're not healthy, then you're not going to become healthy. There's no point in being wealthy and have all these avenues that you've been down, which is overindulging alcoholism, overindulging in takeaways, overindulging alcoholism, overindulging in narcotics. There's no point in being wealthy because you're not healthy. You got to say goodbye to the first three avenues to do well and succeed in life, and to make people want to listen to you. You want people to support you. You want to be the Prime Minister. You want to be a politician, but you haven't got your eyes on the prize 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. You go to sleep and you think of supporting democracy. I do adult stuff, but that's by the by. We all do adult stuff, but it's not alcohol, it's not narcotics, and it's not harming anybody. What I do is always etiquette with style and pragmatic with sense. There's a purpose behind anything I do in life. One thing, I do not serve the public anything vindictive that will affect the public. That is one thing. I never serve a drink. Never serve narcotics to the public. So there you go. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, it's proclamation news and Gavin's got a lot to get through, many segments to get through today. It's the prodigious, it's the prominent professor at PNG, shaken not stirred. So I want to thank all the legal authorities before we go on. The things they have to put up. They have to put up with all them avenues. They have to put up with all them avenues. I'll just give you all legal services, not just the police, NHS, fire brigade. They have to put up with all them misusers, them abusers of life. They're there to save us. And you're abusing the system. You're making them work overtime. Not saying anyone in particular. I'm just saying for that's how I'm going to comprehend. It's my show, and I feel like it needs to be spoken. I think I'm the right person to speak about it as well. I've been there. I know what it's like. So I'm not going to say I'm the best thing since sliced bread. Anyway, before entering UK roads, think safety, think first. Do not enter the road, UK roads, while eating a takeaway perhaps, or eating a bag of crisps because you take your eye off the road. Not looking ahead, not looking ahead. What's ahead of your nose in front of your car? Innocent people in a car in front of you, children on board, perhaps, or a grandfather or a granddad to someone else's family. They're innocent because you're eating, they're innocent. You're going to be the fault. You're going to be the purpose of the accident. So, you need to think what you do before you enter UK roads. Don't enter the UK roads under influence of sleep deprivation, narcotics, alcoholism. Checking your engine oil, water coolant tank are topped up to maximum level. Check your PSI limits. Make sure they've got plenty of sufficient air pressure in the tyres. Has your PSI limit on the side of the tyres on the side of your rim. Make sure you got enough tread to be driving on UK roads. What's the legal limit? If your tyre looks bold, needs changing. Is your MOT updated? Has it got any faults with your MOT? Again, even advisories that it's going to need it done in X amount of miles, just get it done. Save yourself getting arrested. Is your car taxed? Is it insured? Is it, MOT? All them simple steps. Check for further speed, police speed cameras, further police instructions. Check for all road safety signs. Check for co-workers on the roads. A12, M25, casual A roads, main roads. Even in the street, they might be putting the street lights up. They might have cornered off the road, put traffic lights in place. Keep an eye out for them. Drive slowly. No need to rush. Life is forever. If you want to live a happy life, why rush life? Enjoy it. Sit back, relax. Well, don't sit back and relax, but sit back in your car, relax, and enjoy the ride. Because some people can't drive. Think yourself lucky you can get from A to B. Don't start speeding. What's the point of breaking the speed limit? Newborn mother and baby crossing the road at a roundabout, and you're speeding everywhere. Not fair, is it? Not fair at all. So think safety, think first, basically. In Wickford today, car incident. A132, construction traffic in construction area. Queuing traffic on A132, Neverton Road near Borwick Lane. The Beckash restaurant in a construction area. Temporary traffic light in operation, affecting traffic between Wickford and Basden. First report today at 10:30. So not so long ago, a couple of hours ago. Great Baddow. This is Essex, my lovelies. Incident Great Baddow, the Boreham and Chelmsford turn off, I believe. No, it's Great Baddow. A12, stop-start traffic instruction. Their travel time is stop-start traffic on southbound between Junction 19, A130, Colchester Road, Boreham Interchange, and Junction 18, A1060, Danbury. In the construction area, lane closure in place. Travel time is around 20 to 25 minutes. As first reported at 10 a.m. this morning, ladies and gentlemen. In Colchester, there is not many incidents. In fact, there's none. In Braintree, there's none. Althorpe Rodin, just past Chelmsford. B184. Partially blocked accident, slow traffic, no change of location. Partially blocked and slow traffic due to accident on B184. Dunmow Road near A1060, Chelmsford Road. No change of location. Originally reported to be on further back with the junction of Dunmow Road. Junction 25th of July. It's first reported at 11 a.m. this morning. Something else I wanted to let you know. I mean, you don't realise how many casualties there are a year on road incidents. In 2019, there's a total of 153,158 casualties of all services reported road traffic accidents in 2019. That is the calculated incidence of 2019. There you go. So that is the NHS report of casualties: 153,158 people from road incidents. That's a substantial amount in a year, isn't it? That is absolutely a substantial amount in a year. That's why I always say think safety, think first. Really have got, you've got a long life ahead of you. You've got to take things into procurement, what I'm saying. I'm trying to, guide the population, try and support the country to a safe life and enjoy their life. Why live life a hard life when you can live it a blessing? Ian Dale, gents.
Exactly what you're getting. Like great value family rooms at over 800 locations, plenty of parking, and delicious food to please everyone, even the fussy ones. So you could family trip without any of the faff. Premier Inn. Rest easy. Only available to book at premierinn.com. Ian Dale, text 84850. This is LBC.
12:35. This is from Mike in Dollars Hill. He says sports such as rugby and football have been shown to cause brain damage. The idea that compulsory sports at school is good for you is nonsense. Even worse, boxing is also making a comeback. It should be banned. Anything that causes trauma to the head can cause brain damage, even if it's not noticeable at the time. Schools do not understand the difference between exercise, which is good, and sports, which could be life-threatening. No child should ever be forced to play compulsory sports. Many kids hate it anyway. I did. I think you're looking at that from the prism of your own liking or disliking of compulsory sports, Mike. Let's go to Michael in Hampton. Hello, Michael.
Hello, good morning.
Morning.
Yes, I agree with your last caller. I mean, that if you get a doctor on and say, do you agree with a sport where your brain is bashed about a lot? I don't think there's a doctor in the country that would agree with it.
But if it's your choice to play that sport, knowing the risks.
If you're a parent, you say, oh, my child likes a sport, and the child gets badly injured or even worse, what sort of parent would you be to say, I didn't realise that, or I knew that letting my child play this sport could possibly give them brain damage, like heading a football or boxing? Look at Muhammad Ali.
But also, I mean, should parents let their children cross the road?
No.
So all sorts of risks involved in life, aren't there?
That's normal. That's normal. Letting your child go and play rugby 11, 12 or 13 and get damaged, then it's not a parent's, that's not a responsible parent's view if they know the child can be damaged by having your head back. I mean, you wouldn't go around banging your head from side to side because it would disrupt your blood vessels and give it a tear to them, and you have to have a brain surgeon to come in and sort you out.
If I wouldn't play rugby because I don't like it, and I never liked it when I was at school. But I would play football, even though I knew the risks of heading the ball.
You can play football without heading the ball. You don't have to.
Well, not really. It's not really the same sport, is it?
No, you have to change it. But then say, we'll change the rules and keep our players safe. I mean, nowadays it never used to be. If somebody gets a headbutt, they don't let them play on. There's a reason for that because they know now that somebody gets a head bang. You have to, even though they might feel okay, you say, well, we're not going to take the risk of a very expensive sport.
What about cricket, hockey, or golf, where if you're hit by the ball?
Cricket's the same, but they wear head guards. I mean, the chap who's winning a silver medal today is going to win a gold or silver medal. Look at the way they're protected. And the American football, although they try and protect themselves, like that chap you had on earlier said that even with the head guard, it still can damage your head because the brain's still moving around in your head. Any sport that happens to is not a sport, in my view. That's my opinion.
But there are, forget the brain side of this, then. Let's look at the physical side.
You can lose a hand or lose a leg, you can still function, but if your brain's damaged, you can't do anything.
Well, that's a fair point. I haven't looked at it that way. Because I was going to say that the example that I gave to Tim there, of the lady who phoned in years ago saying, well, my child became a paraplegic because of the fact that he was playing rugby. Now,
I used to work at a place, and there was a rugby player came in. He used to come with a dislocated shoulder and black eye on a Monday. So on a Friday looking fine. He used to come back. He loved it. Strange.
Well, I agree with you on that. But I think rugby is one of those sports that you either love it or you just don't get it. And I've always belonged in the latter category. But those who, not just players, but people who watch it, just absolutely love the physicality of it. Michael, thank you. Let's go to Will in Surrey. Hello, Will.
Hi there, how are you?
I'm all right, thank you. What would you like to say?
So I'm an ex-professional rugby player as well. I'm a professional for 10 years. And I was just ringing to kind of agree with two things. So your opening bit around the kind of risk reward element. And the reality is that rugby's a contact sport. So, I had to retire at 27, 28 because of a neck injury. I had 10 operations during my short career. But I'd go back and do it all again because what I got from it far, far outweighs any injuries, physical or otherwise, that I got. It's given me the life I've got, the family I've got.
Thank you, Ian Dow. Let's move on with the show, ladies and gents. It's been a phenomenal morning. I hope you're all enjoying the show. It means a lot to me that you're coming through. Sajid Javid has been criticised for COVID remark. Health Secretary Sajid Javid has been criticised for saying people should no longer cower from coronavirus. I mean, you got to be. He's a health secretary. You got to be careful. You still got to be taking things into precautions. And I still wear a mask when I feel like I need to wear a mask. I wear a mask. Obviously, we can go to a restaurant now, eat at a table. You can't wear a mask because you've got to eat your food, haven't you? But on the way in, I still wear a mask. But on the way to the toilet, I still wear a mask. On the way out the place, I put my mask back on. I don't like being in public with a mask, without a mask. You see a lot of people, absolute thousands of people in London chanting songs about COVID. I think they're selfish. They're selfish. Just it's out there. COVID's out there. Health Secretary Sajid Javid has been criticised for saying people should no longer cower from coronavirus. He made the comments after tweeting that he made a full recovery from COVID a week after testing positive. Please, if you haven't yet got your jab, as we learn to live with rather than cower from the virus, he wrote. But Labour accused him of denigrating those who followed the rules, while a victims group founder said his comments were deeply insensitive. Cower is defined by the Cambridge Dictionary as meaning to bend down or move backward with your head down because you're frightened. Full recovery from COVID a week after testing positive. Symptoms were very mild thanks to amazing vaccines. Please, if you haven't yet got your jab, as we learn to live rather than cower from the virus. The BBC is not responsible for content of external sites. Shadow Justice Secretary David Lammy questioned his use of the word. 129,000 Brits have died from COVID under your government's watch, Mr. Lammy wrote. Don't degenerate people for trying to keep themselves and their families safe. Lib Dem Health spokeswoman Munira Wilson said Mr. Javid's tweet was outrageous. Of thousands remain in hospital with COVID-19. His careless words have insulted every man, woman and child who has followed the rules and stayed at home to protect others, she said. He owes them all, especially the millions who are shielding an apology. Co-founder of COVID-19 Bereaved Families for Justice, Joe Goodman, said Mr. Javid's comments were deeply insensitive on a number of levels. Words matter, and the flippancy and carelessness of his comment has caused deep hurt and further muddied the waters of the government's dangerously mixed messaging. I mean, a lot of people don't like politics, but when you start to analyse it, it makes your life more safe. you got to stick to a doctrine, haven't you? You got to stick to a doctrine to make your life safe. You just live your life by your means, going out, you know, socialising, having a laugh with your mates, you know, mingling, trying to fit in with stupid circles, trying to give it the big I am. Then you'll put your life at risk. You got people out there just smoking marijuana, shooting up things up their nose. Look at the risks that puts on your whole body. Stress, you know, what cannabis can do to you potentially in years, you know, psychosis, all them, you know, why would you want that when you can live your life to the doctrine? I mean, it all starts when you're born. That's why you get christened, hoping that you're going to fall back if you fall out of line when you get older and realise politics is now a form of ideology of how you should act. Mr. Javid replaced Mr. Hancock as Health Secretary last month after his predecessor stood down. He has been seen as more strongly in favour of lifting coronavirus restrictions, previously describing the move as irreversible. On Saturday, cases fell for the fourth day in a row with 31,795 infections recorded. However, the 7-day average for deaths is up to 57.4%, with 86 deaths reported on Saturday. The vaccination programme has reduced hospital admissions and deaths in this current third wave of the pandemic. Modelling produced last month by the Public Health and the MRC Biostatistics Unit estimates the vaccine has prevented 7.2 million infections and 27,000 deaths in England alone. Number of new cases. Daily confirmed coronavirus cases by date reported. 20th of December, there was 60,000. 24th of July is 40,000, 7-day average. Well, no, about 48,000 actually. Essex Live. This is good news. We're talking about the travellers and the Romani Gypsies not getting a fair crack at the whip in life chances, life aspirations. They're not, you know, we talk about Black Lives Matter and all that kind of thing, and the BAME community. There's not much ever spoken about gypsies or Irish travellers. It's not much spoke about. You never see much of them spoke about doing well in the media, apart from Billy Joe Saunders, boxer, king of the travellers. But here we go. Essex Romani Gypsy police officer feared she wouldn't be treated the same. The perception of the outside world can be that the community is dishonest, committing crime and being antisocial or violent, but they are really not. There are some really, once you get to know them, they're just like, it's like anyone, we're all human, and they just got to be accepted in society, and not many people do because of their lack of support for education. I don't know if it's teachers that not understanding. I don't know. Are they tarnished with a brush? I really don't know. I'd see everyone as a face value. You know, if I can hold a conversation with you, I understand you, I like you, then you're good. You're a good citizen, as far as I'm aware. PC Shelley Buckley, who is a Romani Gypsy heritage, began working for the Essex Police in 2011. Romani Gypsy police officer feared she wouldn't be treated the same if she opened up about her background. When police Shelley Buckley began working for Essex Police in 2011, she admitted she was initially worried about opening up about her heritage, despite being incredibly proud of her ancestry. She added, "I just want to be treated normally. I wouldn't lie to people if they asked me, but it wasn't going to make it the first thing I told people. I didn't feel comfortable." As Shelley's career progressed, she became more confident to talk about her roots at work, moving on from police community support to an investigator in Essex Police Public Protection Investigation Unit before becoming a regular officer around 3 years ago. She added that the force and her colleagues have supported her by accepting her heritage and wanted to learn about it. I felt the GRT event at our headquarters was a huge support in allowing my heritage to be understood and showing that Essex Police wants to build relationships, breaking down barriers, she said. It's a strong community. Shelley's Romani ancestry comes from her mother's side, and Nan's home is still decorated with numerous traditional Romani items, such as horseshoes. When Shelley began attending incidents involving the Gypsy, Roma and Traveller community, GRT, her background enabled her to quickly build up a rapport. Initially, members of GRT community would change and be more willing to talk to me, she said. The perception of outside world can be that the community is dishonest, committing crime and being antisocial or violent, but they're really not. Well, I'm happy for Shirley, absolutely. Because they need someone that could understand their community. Because a normal English police officer might tackle them in a wrong light. Because there always a lot of them. I know they get treated because they live in their caravans on not allowed to park in a certain place. I suppose they get a phone call because on private land, perhaps. That's why. But the way they speak to them to get off the land, you got to speak to them in a different light. So look, we had a phone call from the landlord of this land. Can you please move the caravan? And try and make them understand why they can't be there, maybe, perhaps. I'm misunderstood. The vast majority of hard-working, honest people just want to earn a living and look after their families. It's a strong community. It's all about loyalty and looking after one another. Shelley believes negative stories about the GRT community in the media have detrimental effect on public attitudes, but it's pleased to see work going into changing those stereotypes. She said, I think some of the negative perceptions come from the mainstream media a lot of the time. It's only the negative side of the community that it is portrayed. It's young consciousness bias, and if negative perceptions are installed at a very young age, it's hard to change. Attitudes are changing slowly. There's still a lot of work to do, but it's all about educating people and helping them to understand. Once you start to understand our background and value those differences, it will be better. Shelley said her family couldn't be prouder of her work as an officer, despite some initial reservations of her joining. For her immediate family, policing has been something close to home with her dad, was working previously as a detective in South Essex, and her mum worked within child protection before becoming a school's liaison officer. She's now encouraging everyone else in the GRT community to consider applying to become an officer. Just do it. It's such a good job. And you'll be supported, she said. Be honest, and if you have any concerns, talk to people. There's no other job like it. Have faith in yourself and go for it. Yeah, why not? Why not protect and serve the country? I strongly advise it. I tried to get this PCO, but I've got a medical condition, so I couldn't. Rings stolen from fingers of a woman, 80, at Broomfield Hospital, who died after 9-day stay. The rings signified happy times in Lady's life, but her family are now robbed of those precious memories. 2 rings were stolen off the fingers of an 80-year-old woman receiving treatment at Broomfield Hospital, who died shortly after the theft. A gold wedding band and a ruby diamond ring were reported missing by a family of the woman, who was just admitted to Notley Ward at Broomfield Hospital, Chelmsford, Essex, on Wednesday, June the 9th, 2021. She died just 9 days later. During her visit to the hospital, the woman's daughter noted that the rings had been tapped over. When she took the tape off, it was clear that the rings had been replaced by cheap tin rings, according to Essex Police. The original rings weren't taken off for any treatment by any staff members at the hospital during the woman's stay. Police believe they were stolen from the woman's fingers days before she died. During her stay at the hospital, and officers are appealing to help from the public. PC Grimsby, leading the investigation, said the rings were of sentimental value and the family are understandably distraught that this has happened. The rings signified happier times in the lady's life, but her family are now robbed of those precious memories. 80 years old, she had her ring stolen. Do you know what? The worst, volatile, inhumane society are the ones that go out thieving. And a dead person is shocking. One is a gold wedding ring band, and one is a ruby and diamond ring. Officers are now looking for information from anyone who may have been at the hospital during the same time period as the woman. They're also looking to speak to anyone who may have been asked to buy the rings from someone. If you have any information, call 101, quote reference 42/11/2803/21. Alternatively, you can call anonymously the Crime Stoppers on 0800 555 111. Just going to go for a quick, short, amid break, my lovelies. So thank you for everyone acknowledging the show. Just building a bigger, better establishment all the time. You listeners on Castbox. I'm also on YouTube as we speak. Proclamation and gatherings exactly the same. Ian Dale, back to Ian Dale for the break. I'm just going to make a cup of char of Rosie Lee and I'll be back. It's important I take drink breaks because the weather is humid. I suffer migraine in the southern hemisphere. It's a strange old day, isn't it? Strange old day. Humid. It's supposed
fantastic entertainment. I don't know if you watched the British Lions last night when they beat South Africa.
Leaves me cold.
Well, okay, but a lot of people watched it. You know, he talked about the British Lions.
Did we win?
And yes, yeah, we did.
Fantastic.
Yes,
I like it now.
You do. And if we win next week, we won the series. And yes, they really do smash into each other. But they had tightened up on the rules. They had the head assessments, and they go off for 6 days. I'll take your point about what his name Stimson said, maybe 12 days. And also, they don't tackling around the head is now banned, and there's also shoulder charges are banned. So they had tightened up a little bit.
What's the fun in that? That's the only bit I ever liked, watching them sort of barge each other.
I know, but it is. Look, you've got 17, 18 stone athletes running into each other, and you can hear it through the television. Call me a masochist or something, but if you played the game, it's fantastic to watch, and all credit to the rugby players. But my point is, for me, and I think a lot of people, sport's been fantastic and very therapeutic as well, Ian.
Well, that is very true. That's why I play golf. I find that very therapeutic. Keith is in Finchley, and Keith is going to be our last caller in the hour. Hello, Keith.
Hi, Ian. Just wanted to talk a bit about tennis because obviously, well, tennis is my favourite of all sports, and I'm a big sports fan. I hosted a tennis podcast, Rock and Roll Tennis, and my co-host John Lloyd, who you probably know,
I do know John.
He's had umpteen sort of hip replacements. We've had Pat Cash on, who's had lots of sort of knee operations and stuff. And I saw Boris Becker just a few weeks ago, and he's not even playing anymore. He can barely walk, the guy. And I think
Andrew Castle's had a hip replacement.
Well, there you have it. And we had him on as well.
Yeah.
I mean, the interesting thing is, Ian, is that I actually think it's not the sport, it's the professionalism, the professional authorities, because they put so much emphasis on the athletes, or so much pressure on the athletes. If you look at the tennis tour, which is not just 2 weeks of the year, it's 64 tournaments around the world of the year, and these guys put their bodies through the most unbelievable levels of punishment. And it's no wonder that when they hang up their rackets, or in other sports, whatever that may be, it's no wonder that they have injuries, situations where they have hip replacements, knee replacements, or whatever it may be, because the demands of professional sport are just too much in the name of money and winning, unfortunately. And you look at the Olympics. Novak Djokovic was saying that these guys are playing in the middle of the day in Japan, where the temperatures are in the 90s. I mean, surely these authorities are not taking they're not taking the athletes seriously in terms of looking after them, because we're only human at the end of the day. I know these guys are superhuman, but if we look after them, you know, they're only human in terms of their bodies, only flesh and bone. And I think that professional sport is all about money and winning and not enough about looking out for the welfare of the athlete. And that is the problem.
What's your podcast called again?
Rock and Roll Tennis, Ian. I told you about it, and you said you were going to listen to it, so you shouldn't even need to ask.
Oh, no. I'm just giving you the opportunity to plug it again so people can listen, Keith. Honestly, try and do someone a favour and you get it back in your face. Final tweet of the day goes to someone called Impeachable Former President Melisandre Baratheon. Okay. Love that Ian Dale is...
I just see that Deirdre Rashid. I don't know who Mohammed Jr. is. Could you please refrain yourself so I can understand where you come from? Happy Sunday, though. Happy Sunday. I don't know who Mohammed Jr. is. I'm not quite sure. Please let me know. Happy Sunday. It's possibly, is it last Sunday of the month today? It's 25th. Yeah, it is last Sunday of the month. Unless it's 32 days. If it's not 32 days in this month, I don't know. Maybe 31. I'm not quite sure how many days in this month, but I know I'm 32. It's the last Sunday of the month, ladies and gents, the 25th of July. Hallelujah. Praise the Lord. It's a day of blessing. Ukaka unoki ua imela imela. Happy Sunday. The start of the show has been phenomenal. I don't know if you guys enjoyed the start of the show. Like I say, you get to it's a sketchy junction. You've got 5 avenues to turn down. You know, I'm not trying to say I'm the bee's knees. I'm living life, living life of purity. I am living life of purity, aesthetics of life. I've got a few rough edges, so has everyone. We all make mistakes throughout life. You can't turn back time, but what you can do is make change. You can make change to better your aspirations. You want to have a vision. You want to do well for yourself in life, don't you? You want to make your parents proud. You want to make your grandparents proud. If your grandparents are buried, you don't want them to be turned over in a grave. You want to make them proud. You are genesis of your family's trail. They're leaving a trail for you to follow. You got to follow their wisdom and be encouraged. And, use both hands and acknowledge and reframe yourself. Reframe yourself. There you go. Thank you very much, Rashid. My friend helped me along there. Reframe yourself. Redirect your life. First, your 5 exits. First, turn on left. Overindulging in takeaways. Second left, overindulging in alcoholism. Third second on left, that's Spaghetti Junction roundabout. Overindulge in narcotics. The 4th exit on the left, live life purely of the aesthetic of life, the highs and the lows. People say it's all right to do all 3 of them, all 3 of the first turnings at, if you can, I don't know. I can't, there's not even a word for it, I don't think, because I don't do it. I don't know none of them. But I know some people do it. They say it's all right if you do it in moderation. Is it all right if you do it in moderation? You're operating a machine. You're operating a train full of millions of casualties if you make a mistake. Is it okay? We've got these ministers looking over the world. Is it okay for them to be inside Parliament looking over all the nation of 66 million people, and they're often facing alcoholism and narcotics? You do see it in the news. You think, why are they ministers for that county? Why are you people supporting them to be like Nigel Farage? He can't get a seat in Parliament now because he's an ex-alcoholic. Hey, Green Magpie, how you doing? How you doing? All good, thank you. Yeah, but people are voting for these ministers to sit in the office. You don't know you got to know their motive, their protocol, what where they come from, what's their background, what's their reality check. Let's get a rain check that you're voting in to support the nation. They haven't got the eyes on their prize. Got a penalty shootout. You're not going to put Paul Gascoigne in, are you? Well, back then when it's good, but he's still when he's an alcoholic. It's same with, you know, all these amazing sports stars end up ruining their life. Look at Diego Maradona, Prince Nassim Hamid. They're people that we look up to. These are people that youngsters look up to. You know, so many society look up to these people, and they've gone and thrown their life down the drain. But they can change it. You know, everyone makes mistakes in life. Mistakes are there to be made, but you can make that change. Make that change. Just going to make a quick break, ladies and gents. I'm not pointing at society or digging anyone out. I'm just saying I just want to help people acknowledge their rights and their wrongs. Because, you know, would you vote for Tony Montana to be Prime Minister when he's in the film Scarface? You wouldn't. You wouldn't want it for your children. You wouldn't want it for yourself. You wouldn't want it in society. You'd be too scared to walk out your front door. So I just want people to acknowledge right from wrong. To all the protesters in London, they're chanting about COVID. People dying of COVID. And now they're chanting about, you know, like, is COVID's not even real. Well, people are dying of COVID. And some of my close family members have had it and been on death's door. So it's not funny. It's not, you know, people acting inappropriate. It's not funny.
My autobiography, Radical, you can see that, written in 2012 roughly, and I coined the phrase regressive left. It took off after my dialogue with Sam Harris, and I kept saying to people on the left, my people, guard your left flank, because communism is as dangerous as fascism. I kept saying to the people, guard your left flank. Now, with those who are protesting vaccine passports, I will say to you, guard your right flank. It is incredibly important that you do not allow voices that give some form of tactic approval to fascist methodologies and tactics to hijack your cause. You may be wondering what I'm talking about. Well, I'm going to play it for you. And before I do, I want everybody to be prepared, because what you're about to hear is very troubling. And in particular, I'd like to apologize to our NHS staff, to doctors and nurses who work very hard and sacrifice for this country and continue to work as key workers throughout this period of difficulty. And I want to apologize to them for what they're about to hear, but I hope you agree with me that it's in the public interest to hear this so that we can then spend the rest of the hour talking about why what you're about to hear is incredibly wrong. Here we go. Just take a listen. This was one of the speakers at a protest, which again, I acknowledge is made up of a coalition of people, but that coalition of people must never allow themselves to be hijacked by voices like this.
Ask those that are getting it. Has there been any deaths? Ask them what is in it. Ask them. Get their names. You email them to me with a group of lawyers. We are collating all that. At the Nuremberg trials, the doctors and nurses stood trial and they hung.
Now, first of all, to talk about the hanging of doctors and nurses in this context, after having asked for a list of names, is an incredibly dangerous path to tread. And allow me to remain trying to resist against the curtailing of our civil liberties. So take it from me when I say to you, in fact, don't take it from me, but take it from Nietzsche, who says, direct quote, whoever fights monsters should see to it that in the process, he does not become a monster. And if you gaze long enough into an abyss, the abyss will gaze back into you. What you just heard there was a speaker at this, one of the speakers at the mass rally yesterday, again, made up of a coalition of people, and I'm sure the overwhelming vast majority of people would not support that message. But what you just heard was somebody asking to compile a list and then referencing doctors and nurses hanging. I have spent the last 12 years through Quilliam challenging extremism, and I am no stranger to a cause being hijacked from its two extremes. There's probably very few people that can lay claim to the fact that simultaneously, in one go, they were put on a list, Thomson Reuters World Check database, under category red for terrorism, while also, and that was here in Britain, while also in America being put on a list by the SPLC as an anti-Muslim extremist. So at the same time, I was deemed both a terrorist and an anti-Muslim extremist. Why, you may ask? Because when trying to tackle the twin dangers of the excess that we engaged in during the war on terror, while also challenging the excess of the fringes of those who opposed the war on terror, who were extremists and terrorists, it was very easy, depending on whether you're on the left or the right, to slander me by the extremes of either of those stances, respectively. So if you were on the left and you also opposed the war on terror, my message was tarnished as being an anti-Muslim message. And that's why the Southern Poverty Law Centre put me on a list, deeming me an anti-Muslim extremist. Whereas, if you were on the right, my message opposing Guantanamo Bay, Abu Ghraib, the invasion of countries, extraordinary rendition, made it easy for some people to label me as a jihadi sympathizer. And that is why I ended up, at the same time, both on a list being deemed a Muslim terrorist, Thomson Reuters World Check database, and on a Southern Poverty Law Centre list being deemed as an anti-Muslim extremist. In both cases, I sued for defamation. In both cases, I got a substantial settlement. I use that example to advise my listeners and all of those people who genuinely and sincerely fear for the direction of this country and do not want to see it headed towards a Chinese social credit system with mandated domestic vaccine passports. Do not allow your cause to be hijacked by the extremes. And you will understand this. Just as I say, I used to warn against the excess of the far left and say to people, guard your left flank. You can see it now, because the Chinese social credit system was invented by the Chinese Communist Party. And if we weren't guarding our left flank, we didn't realize, as we weren't, by the way, and we didn't realize just how easy it was for elite capture and state capture to occur to a point now where we are physically and tangibly resisting attempts to introduce the Chinese social credit system here in Britain. That's all because we did not guard our left flank. Likewise, people, guard your right flank. Do not allow people that may have some form of confusion around what fascism is to creep into this message and this cause. Fascism and communism are two sides to the same coin, because the way to look at it is no longer about left and right, but up and down. And anyone who seeks power to oppress and punish other people has fallen for the same disease and has succumbed to the same illness. Only by protecting civil liberties and the sanctity and the dignity of individuals can we come through this situation that we find ourselves in at the moment. And that can never be done by asking people to compile lists and then in the same sentence reference hanging them. That can never be done because, as I have said multiple times, and again, my regulars will know this, as I have repeated often, when I used to challenge Islamist extremism and jihadist terrorism, and the Southern Poverty Law Centre put me on a list, I've often repeated, lists are for fascists. Lists are for fascists. And the Nietzschean beast that I referenced earlier, do not become the beast you seek to defeat. Yes, they will put you on lists. Yes, they will oppress you. Yes, they will try and force you without proof not to enter into certain venues. They will try and achieve all of this with regards to the domestic vaccine passport. But you must not become the same thing. And so what I really I think is important here is leadership. And an absence of leadership and a platforming of voices such as that you just heard will end up in destroying what you care about, which is to try and stop mandated domestic vaccine passports. That should be your cause, and that should be your red line, and that requires leadership to understand the dangers of how to protect that cause and the dangers of that cause becoming hijacked. It is so easy. It is so easy to destroy and ruin a cause by allowing voices like that a prominence. Just think about when you go on protests and you complain that the media only focus on the skirmishes that occur on the fringes of those protests, put those images on the front pages and tarnish the entire protest with those images. Well, if that bothers you, then what you just heard there should bother you, because that was a speaker on the podium. And so the organisers have to get their act together and understand that, yes, I know you need coalitions. I know you need to work with people. But you can't be doing things like that. You cannot be promoting messages like that. It is unbelievable. And actually, it's a monumental act of self-harm. So whether you're somebody that believes in conspiracy theories in the sense that there are some form of microchips running around our bodies if we get the jab, or you're somebody that is calling for lists to hang doctors and nurses, or indeed you're somebody trying to blow up 5G towers, then again, let me make it absolutely clear. You are not a friend of the cause that hundreds of thousands of us
go back to 2 minutes. I was having a bit of a disagreement with, and another political analyst the other day, talk about infrastructure. I mean, I've been part of building infrastructure in how many years ago? About 7, 8 years ago. Might be longer than that. Those builders was fixing up Broomfield Hospital and culture general, putting in new old people's ward, brand new establishment in both buildings. One guy said, "Oh yeah, they haven't done nothing to the infrastructure in Essex." Well, that's 2 places in Essex already that I know, and they've been building on the roads, making them safer, making them wider, making the roads, more durable, to be safe to be on. It says here, I'm not quite sure. I mean, you get journalists; journalists are like Siamese whispers sometimes. I'll give you qualitative evidence. Reading out the budget sheet that's in front of me, but there's two that are supposed to be qualitative evidence. You got one coming from energylivenews.com, and you got one come from cityam.com. It's got what Sunak has obviously said inside Parliament. A budget sheet from 2021. Sunak pledges 22 billion for new infrastructure. This was reported on 27th of February. And you got one from the 3rd of March. Well, it's bumped up a few billion. Shame, talking about millions, talking about billions, talking about a few billions, almost double in billions in the space of 1 month. Well, no, space of 6 days, a space of 6 days, providing this 30 days in February, if not 7 days, if it's 31. Anyway, it's 22 billion. It's stated on 27th of February. Rishi Sunak pledges 22 billion for new infrastructure. On the 3rd of March, budget 2021, new infrastructure bank to drive at least 40 billion. We do know they fix up infrastructure, but what I like to see is qualitative evidence matching up in 2 different articles. That's within a 6-7 day radius, a gap, and the margin has jumped a substantial amount of figures. Looking at the economy budget bouncing massively, and now I'm thinking to myself, I'm trying to compare and contrast, the similarities and differences. Similarities are that they're fixing up new infrastructure. Rishi Sunak said it in both statements, because it's the Chancellor, which I'm guessing Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rishi Sunak, same person. But now we're looking at differences. It's the budget. The budget has jumped up 18 billion. Now I've got a political analyst argument. So it's going to make me, as a critical thinker, I'm thinking to myself, well, what is it? What is it? So
At home if you think you could have the virus, even if you've been vaccinated. Let's keep life moving. Find out more at nhs.uk/get-tested.
Little helpers, feeding children in our communities when you shop at Tesco. When you buy fresh fruit and veg, you help Tesco and Fair Share provide up to 3 million meals for children like me in our communities. So if you're popping in for broccoli and bananas, mushrooms and mangoes, you can be sure you're making a big difference to a lot of little lives this summer.
Tesco. Every little helps. Tesco's donation is food with equivalent value to Fair Share. 2p for any fresh fruit and veg, excluding food prepared, sold before 9th of the 8th, average meal weight 420 grams.
Majid Noirs on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Good afternoon. It's Majid Nawaz here on LBC. Let's get straight to your calls. The lines are open, 0345 6060 973. How do we fight against the most or the more extreme elements of those who have been protesting yesterday? A combination of people, a coalition of people, but also including those who were anti-vaccine as well. 0345 6060 973 or text us on 84850. David from Cardiff, welcome.
Hello, Majid. Yeah, I just thought I'd give you a ring. I felt I had to, actually. I was actually at the demonstration in Trafalgar Square yesterday, and it was absolutely awful. It was a disgrace. I'm not an anti-vax, so I believe that the vaccines are very important. I've had both of my jabs, but I am, like you, very concerned about some of the other things that are being proposed, like vaccine passports, an extension of lockdowns, things like that. And I was hoping that yesterday would give an opportunity for people to have some sensible protest and to hear some sensible views about the danger of those things. But it was absolutely awful.
Did you, David, if I may ask, did you hear the particular clip that we played?
I did, yes, I did.
And you heard it live?
Yes, although, to be perfectly honest, the sound systems were not particularly good in Trafalgar Square, so you couldn't really get every word, but you certainly had a sense of what was being said. It was a disgrace.
When you heard that, you must have buried your head in your hands.
Well, I did, because I said I just felt ashamed and so disappointed, because there was a great opportunity to have a proper, sensible protest against what I think are the real dangers of things that are happening, like vaccine passports, the creation of a two-tier society, and it just turned into, well, to be honest, it was almost like an old Nazi Party rally. That's what I felt like. There was no sense coming out of the speakers at all. It was just a rant full of hatred and utter nonsense. And I came away feeling quite low, really, because I said it should have been a great opportunity for people who have real concerns about what's happening to, express a view and have a public voice. And it was awful, absolutely awful, Margin. It really was.
Well, there are clearly, of course, real concerns. You mentioned some of them, lockdown being one, and a domestic vaccine passport being the other. Do you worry, David, that if these sorts of speakers continue to be at the podium when these mass gatherings are clearly a coalition of people, they end up ruining those good parts of what you believe in? They end up hijacking the cause, and it becomes associated with them.
Totally. I mean, virtually almost everything that came out of from those speakers yesterday was awful, and it was terrible, and I think it does damage to those of us, as I said, who have real concerns about the real dangers facing our society. We're going to get swamped now and tarred with the same brush as these people are. Well, it was just very, very depressing.
Do you have a sense, David, if others at the protest with you also felt dismayed when they heard that?
Do you know what? To be honest, I would say no. I don't think they did. It was just awful, really. It really was. It's the first demonstration I've ever been on, but I felt, I do feel strongly about these vaccine passports and the continuation of lockdowns, because I think they're going to do enormous damage to our society. And I just felt, well, here was an opportunity to sort of maybe show my views and and people in a sensible way. And all we got was just bile, invective, and utter nonsense. And well, it's very, very sad. You know, an awful episode, to be honest, Margaret.
So how do you, from here, David, how do you go on continuing to campaign or oppose the things that you are concerned about?
Well, it's very difficult, really, because to be honest, you've mentioned that our causes and our problems shouldn't be hijacked by people like that. But that whole process, that whole episode yesterday was just one long tirade of bio invective and nonsense. It was just, you know, that's all it was. And I really don't know. I don't know how those of us who have real proper concerns are going to combat it, because I think we do need to do something about it, because I think those of us who can think ahead and with a clear mind and see what's happening in society should be very concerned. But if people like that are going to grab the headlines continually and have their views splashed all over the media, it's going to do enormous damage to people who have very genuine concerns about what's happening.
Of course, and there's also, it's just, you provide an opportunity on a plate to those that are in favour of mandated domestic vaccine passports to clip up those particular elements of, say, the speech, and then use that to say, this is what they're really about. Listen to us and trust us instead, and allow us to introduce domestic vaccine passports.
Well, when I got back from the demonstration last night, obviously I looked on the internet, and that's all it was. Straight away, it was this violent invective had been highlighted, and you know, quite rightly so. It should have been called out, but you know, it sort of swamped the rest of the debate. And I think the real proper concerns that people should have just been swept away. And, you know, this is all that people are talking about now. It was a very, very depressing day. And I felt so bad, really, because I said it's the first demonstration I've been on, and I do feel very strongly about things like that.
Well, David, thank you for calling to give us your experience. Pleasure to speak to you.
Thank you, Margie.
Thank you. And there you go, folks. I mean, what you just heard is a classic example of how you're going to end up demotivating the majority of the public who want a sensible and reasonable opposition to the excesses of the government's COVID reaction, such as mandated domestic vaccine passports and a curtailment of our civil liberties. And you know that I have been consistently opposing this stuff, but you will put off people like David, the last caller from Cardiff, if those voices, such as the clip you just heard, are allowed to dominate and hijack those genuine concerns. Guy in Earls Court, welcome.
Hi, Majid, how are you?
Welcome. Tell us what you think.
Yeah, I agree with you. I've been tested. I've got a T-cell antibody test, and I've come out with my doctor thinks I have a long-term immunity to COVID-19. And I think that's as good as, is not better than a vaccine. I'm not anti-vaccines, but having got a T-cell immunity, I feel that's enough for me, and my body worked. I'm ex-forces. I live and work in central London. I think that people like David Icke and characters like that who are speaking at these rallies do not help the cause at all, because he's on both sides. He's seen as a conspiracy theorist, and he says some things that are valid, but I think overall people try and hijack it and use it against the cause, and it doesn't help. And I've also been against the lockdowns and the way they use PCR tests in a way that they've got set at a high rate of cycles and giving false positives and that sort of thing, and that's been used to curtail our civil liberties. And I'm a businessman. I work all over Europe. I work internationally, and the idea of having to have a vaccine passport to go about my business is crazy to me, and I feel very strongly about that.
And when you hear, were you at the rally, by the way, Guy?
Yes, I was, and I've been at a number of them because I work very close to Regent Street, so I actually saw the one where they were shaking the doors of the BBC building. And one of the things that horrified me at the time was it didn't get any coverage. And they were making a point that the BBC were just maintaining a single narrative. It was the mainstream narrative. They weren't deviating. And there's no discussion. There's no debate. There's no, it's important that people have different opinions, and they should be aired and listened to instead of being sort of marginalized and told that you're crazy. And I saw the rally yesterday, part of it. I wasn't actually down at Trafalgar Square, but I saw people coming. There were a lot of kids on cycles as well. It was
and did you hear the particular clip that I just played?
I saw it online. I didn't hear it in person. But I think that doesn't help anybody. It's crazy speak, and it's the sort of thing that people will latch on to try and force a vaccine passport through and say that everybody is nuts, and we're not. There are intelligent people. As I said, I've served in the armed forces for 8 years. I've worked in post-conflict, in conflict and disaster areas, and witnessed cholera, dysentery, all of those things. We were told how to take precautions against them, how to, make our own choices, and somehow I survived all of that, and somehow I survived getting COVID. And I don't like the idea of the sort of big state, that's controlling micromanaging our lives. I find that sort of offensive.
So, Guy, you've been in the forces. You'll probably remember, I don't know if you did any tours in Iraq, but you'll probably remember when the Arab uprisings began. In particular, I'm thinking of Syria now. When the uprisings began against Assad in Syria, they were peaceful young Arabs who were democratically protesting. And then Assad let all the jihadis out of jail and deliberately pursued a policy of allowing the jihadis to hijack the resistance. Of course, the result was ISIS. It's the easiest way to destroy a cause by promoting the more fringe voices to become the central and dominating voices. The cause ends up becoming completely discredited.
And no reasonable person can side with a jihadist, if you're an educated, reasonable person. But an educated, reasonable person can argue against the curtailment of civil liberties. And I think probably the next step for a group is to try and take a legal challenge to prevent the extension of the Emergency Powers Act, because that's where you have all these, these authoritarian edicts coming from our central government, which is cutting back our freedom all the time.
All right, Guy. Thank you very much for calling from Earl's Court. Pleasure to speak to you. Of course, I'll remind everybody, just to be very, very clear, because I'm not taking an anti-vaccine stance. It's important, I believe, to have it. I've had the vaccine. And so I just want to remind everybody, this show is not about being anti-vax. It's about making sure that those who oppose the mandated domestic vaccine passport, those that oppose lockdowns, those that oppose the curtailment of our civil liberties, do not allow their cause to become hijacked by voices that are saying things like hang doctors and nurses. It is for civil liberties that we care about what we care about, and therefore we will jealously guard those civil liberties from attack, both from the left and the right, or the up or the down. You're listening to Lady Noise here on LBC. The time at 1:31 now. It's time for news headlines with Tim Humphrey.
The Health Secretary says he used the wrong word when he said people should not cower before coronavirus. Sajid Javid has apologised and says he was trying to express gratitude for the way in which vaccines are helping us get back to normal. A group of MPs says taxpayers...
Thanks for weighing up, guys. Sorry about that.
...coronavirus crisis for decades. The Public Accounts Committee says it's already cost the country £372 billion. A member of the Joint Committee on...
Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. Appreciate you all waiting in. Thank you ever so much for... You taking it, Michael. Who is it? Michael's taking it, Michael. Anyway, UK will be paying for COVID for decades, says MPs. UK will be paying for COVID for decades, says MPs. Absolutely. Taxpayers will bear the cost of COVID for decades. And inquiry will not come soon enough to learn lessons from the pandemic, MPs have said. In two new reports, the Public Accounts Committee said Number 10's response to the crisis has exposed UK taxpayers to significant financial risks. The MPs also attacked government spending on unusable protective kit. The Department of Health said there were processes to ensure spending gives taxpayers value for money. In the cross-party reports published on Sunday, the PAC said the taxpayer would be exposed to significant financial risks for decades to come, with the estimated cost of the government's measures having already hit $327 billion in May. UK government debt is now over $2.2 trillion, or about 99.7% of GDP, a rate not seen since the early 1960s in June alone. Their interest costs $8.7 billion. I think one example of future costs the PAC says taxpayers could be liable for estimated 26 billion of bad loans, out of 92 billion of loans guaranteed by the government. The report states, while we acknowledge that there is a need to relax the usual rules surrounding major spending decisions, we're concerned that this has created serious risks that may require managing for years. The PAC chairwoman, Dame Meg Hillier, said, with eye-watering sums of money spent on COVID measures so far, the government needs to be clear now how this will be managed going forward and over what period of time. The MP said they are concerned that despite spending now 10 billion on supplies, the personal protective equipment stockpile is not fit for purpose. Out of 32 billion items of the PPE ordered by the Department of Health and Social Care, the committee said that 11 billion has been distributed, while 12.6 billion are stored in the UK as central stock. But some 8.4 billion items, an order from other countries, have still not arrived in the UK. The stockpile, MPs added, is costing about 6.7 million a week to store, while potential waste levels are unacceptably high. According to the report, there were 10,000 shipping containers of PPE still to be unpacked as of May this year. But it had already been determined that 2.1 billion PPE were unusable in medical settings. MP said they equated to more than 2 billion of taxpayers' money and was over 5 times the estimate of PPE found to be unfit for purpose given the MPs by DHSC in January. Prime Minister Boris Johnson's pledge there will be an independent public inquiry into the government's handling of the pandemic with an expected start date in spring 2020. The PAC said it was clear that the government cannot wait for the review before learning important lessons and must instead present a COVID recovery plan in the autumn spending review. Dame Meg added, if coronavirus is with us for a long time, the financial hangover could leave future generations with a big headache. The DHSC spokeswoman said there are robust processes in place to ensure that government spending always provides value for money for the taxpayer. We have worked tirelessly to source life-saving PPE to protect health and care staff, and we have delivered over 12.7 billion items to the front line at a record speed. Meanwhile, an analyst by the Labour Party suggests that the holiday plans of nearly 6 million Britons could be ruined if Spain and Greece are added to the Amber Plus list alongside France. The party said an estimated 5,857,558 people face last-minute quarantine requirements after booking trips over the summer of chaos. Since 19th of July, fully vaccinated adults returning to UK and Middle East countries have not been needed to complete the 10-day quarantine period. They've got the go-ahead with the under 18s now, haven't they, as well, which is, it's phenomenal. So the children get a chance to get an education and not miss out this year, hopefully. But I'm still thinking, start of October, end of September, we're going to be in lockdown again. But Minister removed the exemption from France amid fears over the Beta COVID variant, creating what crisis say is Amber Plus category on government's traffic light system for international travel. Labour's shadow transport secretary Jim McHon said, not only have they failed to protect our borders, allowing the COVID case to rocket, they also refuse to be straight with the public and give them information they need to book travel with confidence. A spokesman for the Department of Transport said, travel just allocations have not changed for Spain and Greece. Yet that the officials were closely monitoring the data and would take swift action should the data reveal a change in risk to England from these countries. Well, they've got some safety measures in place for England's citizens, but I think the damage is already being done now. People going to mass protest in London to sing about COVID. Is that really relevant to your life to go to a mass protest, putting your own life at risk and others around you? I don't know. Some people are too selfish. Anyway, ladies and gents, thank you for listening. I hope you got some takeaway points from the start of the show. Make that change. If I can change, you can change, we can change for the better. For about adult learning, change your aspirations in life. Live by your means. What was you born to do? Go back to when you were born. What was you doing then? You wasn't overindulging in food. You wasn't overindulging in alcoholism. And you wasn't overindulging in narcotics. Make that change. Take care. One love. Speak soon. God bless. I'm trying to end the show, and I don't know if I can. Just when you're trying to end the show, you can't. Yes, we can.